Joe Milton was absolutely hooping against the Cardinals, and it was so great to see because, as we kind of discussed yesterday on the show, we had needed to see him make those strides in a game. It felt like there's been so much talk of what he could be and just never shows it in big moments. And so it was nice to see him make big plays, even if it's a preseason game. I don't care. I needed to see stuff like that. Just simple touch throws, small window, just get it there. And also on the double move to Mingo. A great ball down the sideline and one-on-one coverage. It doesn't go over his head, and it's not behind him. Another perfect ball. So these are the types of throws that we had not really seen from Joe throughout training camp or last year. And all of a sudden, it just kind of felt like it all clicked in this one game. And Brian Schottenheimer was asked about Joe Milton's development yesterday, and he echoed a lot of the things I think we've all said and felt over the last few weeks.
I do think this week is going to be very important in terms of either Joe cementing that number 2 spot or Sam evening the playing field yet again. Because, look, they had been neck and neck basically up until the plane landed in Phoenix, and then Joe had a great first half, and Sam had an interception. And obviously wasn't nearly as efficient and just didn't look anywhere near as comparable as Sam. But that's a very small sample size if we're talking about the bigger picture as a whole. I thought what was really interesting was Will McClay, the Cowboys VP of personnel, or whatever his official name is, the guy who picks basically who is drafted or traded for or whatever. What's his official name? Player personnel?
Yeah,
VP
it's a player personnel position. I think he's a VP now. Yeah.
Trying to give context for who Will McClay is if you're not familiar with that name. He said that basically his perspective on Milton was, look, we brought in competition and that pissed him off. It made Joe dial in. And so what we've seen from him, not just in this training camp, but in all the days leading up to it, Joe was in his first season last year. There was a lot to ingest. You talk about a new scheme that Christian Parker is trying to install on the defensive side of things. Think about the entire playbook that Brian Schottenheimer has at his disposal from the offensive side. That was a lot for Joe to learn in his first year. He's put in a lot of work, not only in learning the playbook, but then doing all the things you guys have talked about. Working on the touch, working on, keeping his eyes downfield instead of just running at the first sight of pressure. He's done so much in terms of his growth, and all of that started before training camp. But I do think that McClay has a pretty valid point when he says, look, competition is going to really increase your attention span no matter the setting or the circumstance. And I think that's exactly what we saw out of him is, look, I'm really fighting, obviously not for the number 1 spot, but I'm fighting for a quarterback position against a guy who's basically my equal. Not as to your point, not necessarily in play style or skill set, but in terms of what the Cowboys are looking for in a backup.
Yeah, Howell has experience. That's part of the reason why I think that they brought him in under that auspices, right? As much as Joe Milton can flash in camp, there's a difference between actually experiencing live NFL competition more than a preseason game as well. And I understand Howell didn't do much with the Commanders, but he was still nearly a 4,000-yard passer and threw 21 touchdowns in the league. He threw 21 picks, but that was part of the boom bust of a kid that was still breaking his way into the NFL. You take someone with arm talent, you inject him into an offense that is quarterback friendly like the Cowboys have developed. I can see where they're looking at that going, we can get something out of this. The difference is if Joe can do similar things with his arm and he has the athleticism, now all of a sudden you've got a backup quarterback that's simultaneously dynamic and gives people a different look that they would have to prepare for instantly that they might not have a chance to game plan for in advance.
100%. And that's kind of where the Cowboys are going to have to make a tough decision here is, do we want the guy who's got some experience and can probably, keep the ship together well enough that we can do some dink and dunk offense? Or do we want the guy who has the high ceiling but also the lower floor? And I feel like that's what you get with Milton, is that he could be an incredible backup quarterback if he reaches his full potential, because he does have the arm strength to hit those deep balls to Mingo. And it's been the touch passes. That has been it's that, and also the mental side of it, of not just tucking and running at the first sign of danger.
Right.
Hanging out there, let the the crossing route come open and hitting him in stride. These are the things that we need to see from him. And again, it's only one game. But if he can stack more days, like you mentioned, if he can stack more of it in camp today, tomorrow, third preseason game, that I think could solidify him as the backup. And to your point about showing a different look as a backup, I'm thinking about the Packers last year.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Jordan Love and Malik Willis was a perfect example of.
Absolutely.
Malik Willis comes in the game. I forget who they playing in that one, but he comes in the game replacing Jordan Love, and the opposing defense had absolutely no idea what to do with it because of that element that he offers on the ground. And so I agree that if they can get Milton good enough as a passer and between the ears, he offers too much upside for them to pass up at QB2.
And I guess in a way, it feels like, okay, this is a whole lot of discussion on a player that hopefully you don't see during the regular season. Like, the only real point in which backup quarterback becomes incredibly important is when your starting quarterback isn't available to you. Unless, to Brian Schottenheimer's point in that self-reflective answer that he gave during his press conference, they're able to come up with a few packages where they do utilize Joe Milton. Like, I go back to when Quinn Ewers was the starter at Texas and Arch was the backup. There were specific packages where, if Arch is coming into the game, like,
it's either
a 90% chance
it's a sneak
a quarterback
or
sneak or
Yeah.
Like a high percentage completion pass.
And they took advantage of that in play calling where they'd fake a sneak and have it go to the running back or something on those lines. Yeah.
Exactly.
I likened it to, not to take away from the Longhorns, that part of it, because I know that's where you're at, but I think of Trey Lance when he was first trying to break into the league with the Niners, where they would spell.
Yes.
I'm trying to forget whether it was Purdy at the time.
I thought it was Garoppolo.
It was probably Garoppolo, I think, early on. But they would use Trey Lance in goal line situations.
Yeah.
And that's a way to protect your starting quarterback too. If you trust a guy on the goal line that can, power his way through.
Yeah, 4th and 1s as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think about, short down and distance, goal line opportunities. I mean, he's got the height and the reach.
Yeah.
Is he strong enough to just kind of bully in there and be that? Maybe.
And that's an element I think that Milton gives you that Howell does not. Like, I think that's where
100%.
he has the advantage. And that's kind of my point in talking about this is, like, ideally Dak Prescott is healthy all season and you don't really care who the backup quarterback is. The only point in which you care is if you're going to have specific packages for your backup quarterback. And in that instance, I think all leverage goes to Joe Milton, and it's not really a question.
I really think if a team can find a backup quarterback that can at least keep things together for at least a short stretch. Let's say Dak's out for 4 weeks. And we talked about this a little bit on yesterday's show. If they can keep Dak, if Dak, say, misses 4 games, if they can go 2-2 with a backup,
they're fine.
That's a win.
Yeah.
Because you just need to let the whole season don't go down the drain. And in today's NFL, you're not going to find a Pro Bowl quarterback as your backup.
Yeah.
But if you find a really good one, like a Nick Foles who can lead you to a Super Bowl,
or Cooper Rush,
or they are
Cooper
out.
Was good for when they got him. Yeah.
There have been multiple times where really good teams have had to lean on a backup quarterback for a few games, and they get the job done because the coaching's good, the whole talent is good, the roster is good, the system is good.
Hello, 49ers.
Yeah, 49ers are a great example. Packers had their moments last year. It was...
but to use the Green Bay analogy a little earlier, though, I'm reminded of the times when Rodgers was on the team and their backup would come in and the drop-off was so immense that they had to capitalize early while he was on the roster to make sure they could weather any kind of injury storm. And at least where the Cowboys are concerned, we keep looking at their schedule like the early slate is going to be tough. Yeah. Not necessarily in terms of opponents, but also in terms of just travel and the physical nature of what they're going to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, you can see teams that have, I think about the Colts last year, and Daniel Jones, who really, we were like, is this Daniel Jones? Through the first half of the season, we're like, who is this guy? It was like Monstars. I'm like, whose talent did you steal? Then he gets hurt, and then the Colts end up having to bring Phillip Rivers out of retirement and fatherhood to go be a quarterback. Like, their season went down the tubes the moment Daniel Jones got hurt. So it kind of goes to say that you need a good backup plan, or at least good enough where a guy can give you, and that's why I kind of love that Dak's not playing this preseason.
Yeah.
Is that both these guys are getting tons of reps they need, and that should, in theory, kind of help them if one of them gets the job and then has to come in at some point during the season. Obviously, we hope that's not the case, but sometimes it is, even if it's for a week, 2, maybe 4. And Dak Prescott has had some injuries in the past, so it is worth noting, especially as he gets older in age. So
they've also happened in even years. It has been alternating essentially 2020, 22,
right.
and 24. And
so having a good backup plan, even if the guy's not going to get you to the Super Bowl necessarily, but can he keep it afloat, is a win. So want to see more from him tonight,
100%.
Tomorrow, next preseason game. But he's got an opportunity there. I think he's got grasp of the job. He doesn't have full control, but it's certainly possible. All right, who are we going to next?
Jayshon Barham.
He can, whatever he wants, because
Barhammer.
he's looking like an absolute dude. And I love that he wears 55. Linebacker.
I think
give me that linebacker number. Give me these single-digit linebacker numbers. It's
dude,
crazy.
0, don't even
Zero's
start.
cool.
Okay.
But Donovan Ezeraku rocking the 6 just seems weird to me.
No, I
agree.
I agree. I do actually agree. I think when free agency started, like when, I guess, even before the draft, and then even after they finished the NFL draft, like there was such an idea that the Cowboys needed to bring in an inside linebacker because they were so thin at that position. They were so objectively bad at it. And with DeMarvion Overshown's health being a legitimate question, you just thought, like, how are you not making a bigger move there?
Right.
And if this kid that they took was 3rd round, I think he was their 3rd round pick, can be even remotely close to what we've seen, at least in that. I mean, he missed the preseason opener, so in his first preseason game against the Cardinals, his ability to just be kind of a force that you have to account for in the middle could be huge. Like, it could solve, if he and DeMarvion stays healthy and you have D Winters there, like, if they can be what was so evidently missing last year, I think you kind of did solve that problem. And I don't think that when the people from the outside looked at the Cowboys going into the draft and even taking him in the 3rd round, I don't think anyone at the time felt like, okay, this is going to solve that need.
Right, yeah.
But through at least preseason camp, obviously he was dealing with the groin injury for a little bit, so we haven't seen him in full the entire time. But seeing him on Saturday, and if he can, to your point, kind of stack up a couple more of these good days and then another good performance against the Saints, which again, it's the Saints, like, couch your perception there.
It was the Cardinals, same thing.
Right.
You know? Like,
right, that's fair. But he's I think he showed what all the Cowboys have been raving about over the span of camp.
It's the combination of physicality and awareness. You wanted both of those two things. And just seeing the jump off the ball and the idea that I see run play, I'm going to attack. Yeah. That is, like, at a minimum, whether or not he succeeds in first contact, just the fact that he's reading it, diagnosing it, and attacking, they want that kind of aggressiveness. And even if it's not, quote unquote, the solution this year, the fact that it looks like it can develop into something moving forward, that's great value at the pick that they selected.
Yes.
So he doesn't have to turn into a 10 sack, oh my God, is this Micah Parsons again? He just has to show up when he's on the field and not look like a liability like most of the inside linebackers did last year.
I'm amazed, and again, it's so early. He's only played so little.
Right.
Yeah.
The instincts seem to be there.
Yep.
He's playing fast and he's playing free. And typically at that position, there's a lot of processing going on that it doesn't come as easy. They play a little bit slower. They're reacting a split second too late. And he just doesn't seem to have that. He's diagnosing quick in real time. And then on top of that, he's not missing tackles.
Yeah.
Like, he's going up and you are on the ground. All things that the Cowboys needed last year because there was so much, read and react that was just so poor a season ago. And they had veteran linebackers, too.
There was misread and late to react.
I think so much of
They
that
had
is...
one of your Bengals.
But listen, if you're trading for a Bengals linebacker...
You have issues, which we knew by that point in the season.
That is bleak. Because I knew when that happened, I'm like, this is bad. If you're having to trade for a guy, the Bengals aren't even starting. And they had and still have horrible linebackers. But that was a situation for the Cowboys last year where they couldn't run their scheme.
Yeah.
Whether it was the scheme's issue and Eberflus wanting to run the zone and it just becoming too complicated, or it was the athleticism and talent of the players. Whatever. It could have been a combination of both. Probably was. But now you seem, because we haven't started the season, but they've seemed to have solved this riddle with the guys you mentioned. And D. Winters is a player.
Yeah.
DeMarvion Overshawn, when healthy, is a player.
Yes.
And the way they've altered their scheme as well, I don't think as much is going to necessarily be asked of, some of these backers the way they were previously, the way they're going to be kind of spread out in CP's system. So really encouraged for Barham, similar to like Milton.
Yeah.
Stack those days, man, because he missed a couple of weeks with injury. He's got to ramp up a little bit more, but still, he's got 2 weeks to the season. I would love to see him out there week 1, but still a little ways to go there.
Also doesn't hurt that he's now in I guess, at least on a defense that features Von Miller. And he's gotten to learn directly from one of the greatest to ever do it. Oh, my God, look at that face. Also, look at that mustache. Looks nice.
But no, like if you want to try and develop a young kid that already shows great instincts, this is the right guy to learn from.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat this kind of, direct. And granted, this is a one-off shot from, I think, midway through the third quarter. Vaughn was doing this with a lot of people on the sidelines.
Like Azaraku and
yes.
Yeah.
This is an exclusive. And I think this, again, just shows how great of a decision it was to bring someone of Von Miller's caliber into this, because everyone will listen to him.
Yeah.
Well, Christian Parker was asked specifically or maybe it was McClay, one of the two, was asked what specifically they felt like Vaughn brings, right? And it's clearly at age 37, a more niche skill set, right? He can still get off after the passer.
Sure.
And he can still do things on the field. His instincts, like you talked about, are, in a league of their own, or have been really since he started in the NFL. But what he brings to this team in particular at this point is so much in the way of knowledge, in the way of preparation, in the way of being a great teammate. And I think it's so many of those things that make up a football player in 2026, really at any point, but specifically now, that he brings. And he also brings a willingness to share that. And that's exactly what you've seen, to your point. Like, they're with Barham, but like also throughout the game and also throughout all the moments we don't see when they are in the locker room or when they are on the team plane, or in the weight room. And I think that's where what he brings becomes a little more invaluable.
Yeah.
And just harder to like pinpoint.
And that's the thing. You might not be able to pinpoint it. You don't know where it's going to help in the season. You just know that it will.
Yeah.
That's the important part.
Yeah. That's not something that you can necessarily point to at this stage. It's share the wisdom, share that database of knowledge, things that have worked throughout your, future Hall of Fame career. And let's try to like just, little nuggets. Yes. All it is, just little things. And that's kind of what it is. There's no like, hey, Vaughn, what's the secret to the sauce? There's no one answer. It's just little things accumulated over time that he can then impart. So, we're going to see that value pay off.
And I don't know who it was that said yesterday, kind of transitioning into more of the vibes that Kelly's high on.
What?
But
Someone say vibe?
The Shiyazh Pete speech that has since gone viral. Some national pundit reacted to it, and they said that is the type of thing that can get you far in an NFL season. Like that type of camaraderie, that type of like brotherhood, or I don't know, maybe just like enjoyment of your teammates.
I think this is actually a time where we can say the V word. Good vibes. That is
because of the speech?
That's a vibe builder.
A viral vibe builder.
We talked about this with Mike yesterday. Just like you can't craft moments like what happened.
Yes. And it just kind of, that on top of everything that's kind of transpired this offseason, like what is there to feel like bad about right now if you're a Cowboys fan? Like, is there anything where you look across this team and even the front office is kind of like
turned a corner?
Maybe I'm not going to say that because I don't want them to pull the rug, but we're still not in week 1 yet. But it feels like there isn't anything to feel really scared about or concerned about or PTSD about. That this team may have turned a new leaf, but we'll have to see that when the season starts. But the good vibes are for good reason.
Yes, they are. You said the PTSD word, and I literally had PTSD when I watched the first defensive drive in the first preseason game against Seattle. Like, it was genuine PTSD. I was like, no, that is Matt Eberflus on the sideline. But since then, literally since then, I haven't felt the PTSD word. On the vibes thing, we do want to get to, so in case you haven't heard this viral speech from Shiyazh Pete, do we want to run the actual speech? Okay, we'll run that, and then Schottenheimer reacted to that moment yesterday.
Well, that was an incredible win. I am very fortunate to be amongst you and to play in the same field where the same star hold it on our chest. And I'm proud of us. I'm proud of how far we've come. Man, this game, fate brought us here as strangers, but this game, this star, this team will make us brothers.
It was what this team and really the game of football is all about. Like, it's a storyline where you have a guy who's fighting his butt off trying to make the team, but when you give him an opportunity, deservedly so, to address the group, it was very raw and it was very authentic. And I'm thrilled for him.
Yeah, I mean, for those who are just, crawling out of their bunker and were unaware of what took place, I mean, Shiyazh Pete, for Navajo Nation, what a representation that was for him to be able to see the field and make so many people across this country proud.
As much as we roll our eyes at the preseason, it's moments like that that do make it worthwhile.
100%.
Yes.
100%.
I'm reminded of the Alarcon story from a couple of years back, too. Like, just showing representation, giving people the chance to make the roster might not always work. That's okay. But give them the opportunity, and they can craft memorable moments like this.
Yeah, incredible. Hope the vibes keep rolling for the Cowboys. Training camp continues tonight.